What do you want to be when you grow up? This is probably one of the most common questions that we were asked when we were young. But how often are we prepared to answer this question? Or how often does the answer actually play out? Welcome to the Generation Hustle Podcast, a show that explores the world of business, entrepreneurship, and culture, all centered around the millennial. I'm your co-host Sherison alongside my good friend Amin, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Buster Scher, founder of HoopsNation. At a young age, Buster knew that he wanted to be a broadcaster. Throughout his high school years, he experimented with various outlets before deciding that he wanted to carve out a niche for himself. Enter HoopsNation. HoopsNation started as a fantasy basketball page when Buster was just 15 years old. Within a couple years, he found himself surrounded by like-minded creatives and brands alike. Buster would go on to partner with Dunk, Atlantic, Overtime, and even Vayner Media with the great Gary Vaynerchuk. Today, HoopsNation has over 1 million followers, while Buster continues to build onto his brand with The Buster Show, his personal podcast with athletes and celebrities. So we sit down to talk to Buster about scaling your brand. We discuss how to strategize your digital presence to maximize your exposure. And we also lean in on his experience interning at Vayner Media and what he learned working alongside Gary Vaynerchuk. This was a fun conversation that's sure to get your creative juices flowing, so let's get right into it.
Let's do it. I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So let's start off with talk to me about HoopsNation. You've built this page up to 1 million users, dude. Like that's amazing. It takes obviously a lot of hustle, a lot of work, and it's probably been over time where you've built it out. So before we even get to that, why did you choose basketball of all sports? I know growing up you were a huge baseball fan.
It's funny, I loved baseball growing up. I collected baseball cards. I was super into everything baseball as a big Yankees fan living in New York. The first year I was a fan of the Yankees, they won the World Series in 2009. Similar story with me with the New York Giants football team. They won in 2010. I was the first year I was a fan of that.
They beat the Patriots that year, right?
Great win. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so super into baseball, but then eventually I decided the game was a little bit slow for me. I kind of slowed down playing Little League baseball as well and started playing more basketball and just wanted to see the people that were the best at that as opposed to what I was playing before in baseball. So became a New York Knicks fan. I didn't know that the Knicks were bad. I just loved watching them play and hoped that they would win every time I was lucky enough to go to games. And yeah, that passion kind of carried through into my late middle school, early high school years where I started posting and talking about basketball online.
Right.
And actually my sophomore year of high school, I tried going back into baseball, football, and hockey. It just didn't work. So I looked at basketball. But I tried.
Sweet. And so how did you kind of come up with the idea for HoopsNation? Like, was it just maybe a passion project, or was it something you're seeing online and you're like, hey, let me take a shot at that too?
It's kind of just trial and error. I started blogging about fantasy basketball. That didn't work. So I started blogging about the NBA. That didn't work. So I decided that I wanted to do all levels of basketball, but from like a broadcast first standpoint. So I actually grew it using live streaming.
Okay.
I started live streaming and just talking about the NBA at age 16 and, started getting a little bit of attention. And the other pages on Facebook saw that at the time and thought that it was cool because nobody else was doing it, and they offered me the ability to do it on their pages. So I started doing it on their pages and they offered to pay me like $10 here, $10, $20 here, or whatever. And I said, no, thank you. But I would love to do it for free as long as I can self-promote myself like crazy.
Right.
So
Right.
after every question, I was like, by the way, everybody, go follow this HoopsNation thing. Everybody.
Yeah.
So I was like shaking people's heads on a live stream for 2 hours, 3 hours straight every night, getting people to go follow HoopsNation from these other pages while like doing this broadcasting for the other pages and increasing engagement for them. So I was doing like 4 or 5 streams a night on 4 to 5 different pages, just talking NBA for 15, 20 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
And converting those people. So it was very, very, diligent, not fancy, like one by one, make them a friend and then get them to convert, kind of growth strategy at the beginning.
Sweet. And so as you're progressing and you're starting to see a lot more prominence on the page, how did your kind of strategy change to kind of, one, maintain the brand, and then two, grow the brand to where it is today?
Well, again, it's like I was popping on Facebook, getting like 40, 50 million views on videos that I was editing on like iMovie. And then all
Right.
of a sudden, algorithm change and everything goes to zero. So I had to start all over.
Yeah.
Literally, I started on Instagram at zero, wasn't able to convert a single person from Facebook to Instagram. Went over to Snapchat, was able to convert a little bit from Facebook to Snapchat, but zero from Facebook to Instagram, and did it all over again.
Yeah, no, okay, that makes sense. And so, what would be your piece of advice to anyone, maybe even in sports or anyone kind of building their own page, like given the landscape of how competitive things are now with any kind of social media presence, what would you say would be the best strategy to kind of grow organically?
Make good content. I think Instagram, in terms of platforms, Instagram is the best, but
Hmm.
the only way you're going to stand out right now, but there are two sides of this, right? When I started HoopsNation on Instagram, all these big pages, because I'd hit them up for advice, and they all told me it was too saturated and that I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
Right.
They're always going to tell you that.
right.
So, don't listen to me when I tell you it's saturated. Yes, it's saturated, but it was saturated when I started, and it was saturated when the people before me started. It's never not going to be saturated, So definitely do it regardless. And I think Instagram's still the best place to do it, or YouTube if you're a personality or anything of that nature.
Hmm.
But Instagram is still king, and content consistency, just putting out stuff, iterating, testing.
Yep.
Everybody wants to know the secret sauce.
Yep.
It's like out of Kung Fu Panda, the secret sauce is there is no secret
Yeah.
sauce.
It's just,
It's like you just got to do it. You got to work at it like anything. You're not going to get great at running long distance without running short distance, and
mhm.
then that short distance slowly morphs its way into long distance.
Yeah, and then so talk about one thing here, patience to grow something. A lot of people want it right now, but talk to us how long it actually took to grow to 1 million followers.
It's really a matter of what your goals are.
Yeah,
If your goal is success, you should stop right now.
Yeah.
And I think 90% of people's goal is success. That was my goal at the beginning. I should have stopped right then and changed it. It slowly changed over time, and that's okay too. But man, success is the wrong goal. See, your goal should be either A, consistency, or B, the process. If your goal is one of those two, the answer to the question doesn't even matter. And that's the best case scenario, because then you're going to work harder than everybody else because
yeah,
you love it. You're just going to do what you love more. If I love playing video games, I'm going to be better at 2K than you will if you don't like playing video games. No matter how much you want to be better than me, no matter how much you think you can be better than me, no matter how much better than me you are at NBA 2K, if I enjoy it and you don't, I will be better than you.
yeah, yeah,
So I think that same thing applies to business, and I think the same thing applies to consistency and strategy on social media.
right,
But if anybody's goal is success or like getting 1 million followers, they're in it for the wrong reasons.
right. It's more so your passion will drive kind of that success to come, right? And so,
Success is
uh,
a byproduct of passion.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And so, how are you managing the team now? Do you have like, or the page, I should say, do you have like a team running it behind the scenes, or are you still like a one-man show, kind of taking
I
it from there?
was I was up until quarantine pretty much, and then I started taking advantage of the opportunity of all that time
Hmm.
to build out a team. So that was one
Sweet,
of the first moves I made during quarantine, was to build out a team. So I'm hands off right now. It's the first time ever. I did the first 23,000 posts on Instagram
wow,
personally, me clicking
yeah,
post,
Jeez.
and since then it's been my guy Aaron and my guy Jared, and they've kind of been running the show, and I'm looking to add more people.
sweet. No, that's awesome. And so, one of the things that obviously larger profiles and Instagram pages bring are new opportunities. Can you walk us through like how Hoops Nation's helped you build your own personal brand alongside bring new opportunities in the field of sports, like working with the NBA and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think anything that I do, like personally, that is relevant to people in the basketball and sports world, I'm going to post on Hoops Nation. So automatically, it gives a lot of attention to the NBA if they want me personally to do stuff. and it's kind of an interesting combination because my background in high school, I shouldn't even say background. I loved doing broadcasting in high school.
Yeah.
And so I have this broadcasting background, and I was doing
Right.
it simultaneously while building the social media stuff. So I can kind of combine those two and give a really, really valuable approach for any brands that want anything to do with me, because they also get the brand with it.
Right.
So that's helped my personal brand tremendously.
Sweet. Sweet.
Yeah, so we kind of wanted to lead into that as well. And you touched on it a little bit before when you said in the early days when you were getting those partnerships from brands, you were like, I don't even want to get paid. Just let me just kind of plug in my name. So can you talk to us about that? Like how to kind of curate that partnership through a social brand and make that beneficial for both of you?
Yeah, I think, I'm a big fan of, it's short term versus long term.
Right.
I care about building my brand so that I can, you know, it's like it really is short versus long, small versus big. Do I want $100 here, or do I want to build my brand 5x, because then I get the leverage of doing something for the other person for free, and they're going to push me harder.
Yeah.
And then in 20 years, when I invest in company X, I'm able to talk about it, and it has 20x the impact, all
Yeah,
because I passed on that $100
for sure.
4,000 times.
Right. So can you give us an example of anything else like that? Like anywhere that you kind of took a long-term strategy and it paid off in spades in
In
terms of partnerships?
terms of partnerships, yeah, I've hosted so many shows for different companies for free. Like, I did the NBA Finals with Michael Rappaport when I was 16 for free.
No
Yeah.
way.
And that opened a bunch of doors.
So what's he actually like in real person? I know he's pretty loud on YouTube and all these other channels, but what's your personal opinion of him?
He's hilarious. I love Rappaport. But the game we actually did was game one, when J.R. Smith
Oh,
didn't
screwed
pass the
up.
ball.
Ah,
So just imagine, it was me, Rap, and then Brian Scalabrine was in for the fourth quarter.
White Mamba.
White Mamba.
So it was the three of us, and we're all freaking out, man. We don't know what the hell is going on. We don't. Oh my god, it was a disaster, but it was so much fun. But that's another example of one of those old things. It was a cool opportunity. I was doing play by play, like I was leading it, and got like this legend who's the best person I could possibly have by my side for that. So it was really cool. He pushed me on his pages, like such a great credibility boost. All
Yeah,
these things
for
that
sure.
I got out of that, and maybe I wouldn't have got the opportunity if I had demanded getting paid.
For sure. So these are all things that like have worked really well, but can you give us examples of things that the mistakes that you made along the way that you've kind of learned from, whether it was growing the brand or partnerships or anything like that?
It's funny. I don't believe in mistakes. I gave a few earlier, like trying fantasy basketball didn't work. I tried to launch all these different pages and get like my high school buddies to run them in different sports. I tried launching a page for every single team in the NBA and hiring a kid to run it. Doesn't work. You can't.
Right.
You can't. I couldn't personally manage it, and I didn't have anybody at the time who I could trust, and I didn't have anybody who I could pay to do it. It was all
Yeah.
I wanted doing it for free. I wasn't making any money. Where the hell
Right.
was I going to make money if I was taking every opportunity for free?
Exactly. Exactly.
So you live and you learn and you progress, and you, like I said before, you test and you adjust and you critique and you move on. But yeah, man, I think not believing in mistakes is a very powerful thing for people. When they really like lock in on that mindset. You know.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's a really cool perspective to have in any walk of life, right? And just on that topic, one person who kind of yells that to us every day is Gary V. And you've actually interned at Vayner Media. So can you talk to us about that?
He's a beast. I met him at Columbia University when I was like 15 or 16, and told him about myself. I was friends with a few people that worked for him already, so I actually had one of them brief Gary on who I was before the event, so that when I went up to Gary, he already knew who I was. And so that was kind of my first intro. And after we talked, it's in like a YouTube video of his. You can see 16-year-old me blabbering on about basketball on Facebook. And yeah, then he asked me if I would stop by the office, and the rest is history. But Yeah, I mean, he's got it down packed.
Being in that atmosphere and working with someone like that, what kind of lessons did you take away from that?
Yeah, I was very separate from him. I was working for a subdivision called Vayner
For sure.
Talent.
Okay.
He's him, 1,000-person company. It was probably like 600 at the time, so I barely even saw the guy.
Yeah.
But the experience of the company, they're all great people. Some of whom, a lot of whom I'm still in contact with today. And it was a very cool gig because that was the first job I ever had. I never worked for anybody beforehand, so.
And what would you say, like, what kind of advice would you give younger folk that are trying to get internships at these, like, I guess in this case, Vayner Media type companies in front of people like a Gary or whatever?
To not try to get in front of a person like Gary. My best advice. I think you have to do something beforehand. I think you have to prove your worth and allow them to come to you.
I kind of want to pivot away from that, but on the topic of Gary, one of the things that he does is he really pushes the first mover advantage, and that kind of helps us approach new avenues and new channels. And obviously, this year, like the biggest craze was TikTok, right? Like everyone was hopping on TikTok, even if you don't know it, like just get on it. That's Gary's philosophy. We wanted to get your perspective on that. Like, what is your philosophy on entering new channels or new platforms?
Run with it, man. You never know. Instagram took 3+ years to hit 1 million. TikTok, it took 3 weeks. You
Yeah,
never know. You never know.
for
Really
sure.
ruined the fun of hitting 1 million on Instagram. I think I think anybody that follows that philosophy is super right. You can't go wrong. There's nothing to lose. It's free. We're
Right.
granted we're all living on rented property, but I think it's good. I think you should all do it, and I think the way that these platforms push new products, or the way that new platforms are, they give out free attention to start.
Hmm. And would you say, like, some people have the philosophy of being like hyper focused on maybe one platform versus others being on everything? Um, is your kind of philosophy like maybe pick one or two and then kind of hyper focus on those, or just be on everything?
Everything.
Has that's obviously helped you? And like, how do you kind of keep focus, making sure that you kind of consistently post content and everything? I know you have a team now, so that makes things easier, but if you're a single person doing this, how's that work?
Um, you know, you don't need to make something different for everywhere. You can just share things multiple places, and you can make small adjustments. Like, and content is as simple as, like, I sent a DM yesterday back to a kid who wrote me a question, and I just copied and pasted the text onto LinkedIn, and the post did really well. That was my LinkedIn for the day.
Right.
It's not so complicated that I got to sit down in front of a camera and come up with a script and have
Yeah,
somebody edit it and make micro content and then have it exported and then give critiques back. And then, I'm getting like nauseous just saying all this. I just copy and pasted and posted. That was it. Done.
yeah. Okay, no, that's sweet. And so let's talk about the future of digital. There's a lot of companies like and brands trying to kind of gain more awareness on social media. So what kind of trends are you noticing now that brands should kind of take advantage of to maximize their investment in marketing, and maybe invest in other channels that they haven't previously done?
Best bang for your buck is investing in these secondary platforms of big influencers. Meaning, if somebody's big on TikTok, pay them for posts on Instagram. If somebody's big on Twitch, pay for their posts on TikTok. If some like because the top 10% of their fans transfer over to the other platforms and then engage
Right.
in the highest.
Sweet. No, I've never heard that. Actually, that's very, very smart. That's pretty cool. What about audio? What are your thoughts on audio, like Alexa, Google Home, especially with the explosion of podcasts and stuff like that? How do we kind of maybe incorporate that?
I'm super uneducated on the subject. I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts. I do podcasts. That's all I know. But I imagine it's going to be huge, although I don't see that many people actually using them. Like,
Yeah,
personally.
I
Right.
personally don't have one at home either. I just ran across the stat that at least in the U.S. there's about 50 million of these things out there. So there's a bunch of them out there, and then so it might be popular, it might be not, but I think there is a shift. I know I have a couple buddies that have little chatbot tools that you can just talk to and stuff as well, and it curates content where you over Alexa and Google Home. So
That's cool.
yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm just seeing shifts in technology, and it's great to see kind of things moving forward with that. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, how can maybe the WNBA improve some of their marketing aspects in terms of growing their brand and their sport? Because they've been traditionally a bit struggling with that field. But what kind of other approaches maybe do you think that they can take and grow?
I think they're doing a really good job. Not that they're necessarily doing a really good job, but just the attention on the WNBA right now is amazing. And just looking at their social blades on Instagram, I was looking the other day, doing really good.
Right.
So I'm pumped to see that. And I think all the NBA players supporting LeBron wearing the WNBA hoodie, like all these guys doing that, super good look. I ordered a WNBA hoodie myself, so I'm pumped about that. I want to start buying WNBA cards because I think Sabrina's a good investment, and like there are a lot. Like I'm in it. I'm in it. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
So I think I think it'll only get better from a marketing standpoint. I don't know.
Yeah.
Same with basketball. There's no difference between the NBA and WNBA. There is no difference. What you need is people who are passionate in creating a subculture. That's it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And now let's talk about the Buster Show. So you've actually leveraged, obviously, your brand to talk to like Kendrick Perkins, Meta World Peace, or if people don't know, Ron Artest, Katie Austin, and Ashley Newman. So what are what's some advice and strategies that you've used as maybe someone who has a smaller brand at the time who are looking to connect with high profile guests and influencers?
If it's early on, I wouldn't go for I wouldn't go for high profile guests if you're just getting started. I would interview like my best friend and my mom, and then as that builds up, then it's like, oh, here are the last 10 episodes. We're growing and I really love it, and I really love your story, and I would love to have you on.
Sweet.
Instead of
And
like the biggest turnoff real quick for me is like if somebody sends me an email and it has a bunch of I's in it as opposed to U's.
yeah, no, exactly. I think value kind of creation with it comes, it's like you have to provide value to the guest person coming on board. Just like it's not only about my brand, it's about getting feedback from them to provide some subject matter on something. So totally on board with you.
But we wanted to get like more feedback from you in terms of like what you're looking at into the future, and where you're taking Hoops Nation from here.
Hoops is, my first passion. I love it. I want to continue scaling that out, but I'm building CardsNation, which is the sports card subsidiary underneath HoopsNation, and I'm soon to be launching a few other platforms and, working with a few other people on some new brands. So I'm excited to be able to talk about those soon. But yeah, man, I'm really focused on my personal brand too. So I'm doing more podcasts, and I'm super grateful you guys invited me here, but yeah, really, really working on scaling that out and just trying to help as many people as possible, however I can, because I think it comes from a very unique standpoint of like I'm almost 20 years old, but so I'm in both boats.
Right.
And it's cool for people my age or people younger, like my own self in high school, to be able to look at that and have that person who's super accessible, and I want to be that guy.
Sweet.
For sure. Yeah. And we love what we were doing with Buster Show. I checked it out recently, and it's definitely super insightful and really informative. So I love to see that, just to be able to share those conversations.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. All right. Peace, guys.